Swiatek, Sabalenka, and the Big Three. The best tennis rivalries elevate the players and the sport. Roland Garros, Paris. If Thursday's French Open semi-final between Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka feels like a rare women's tennis heavyweight battle at a Grand Slam, that's because it is. Swiatek and Sabalenka have been the two most dominant WTA players of this decade, winning 8 slams between them. But this is only their second meeting at a major, the first coming 3 years ago at the US Open, before Sabalenka had won her first Grand Slam title. Since then, they have won 23 titles between them, including the US Open that Swiatek won in 2022 after beating Sabalenka in the semifinals. It's not just Swiatek and Sabalenka who have met relatively rarely at the slams. Add Coco Gauff and Elena Rybakina, the other two most successful players over the past few years, and there have been just 10 Grand Slam matches between the four since the start of 2022. Compare that with the 3.5 seasons when the men's Big Four, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Andy Murray, were at their peak between Wimbledon 2009 and the end of 2012, in which time they met 24 times, plus 2 at the Olympic Games. This matters not because Swiatek, Sabalenka, Gauff, and Rybakina should be asked to match the ridiculous standards of that famed quartet. It matters because the greatest tennis rivalries, played out at the Grand Slams, define and elevate the sport around the world. It's massive. 19-time Grand Slam singles champion Martina Navratilova said of the impact of rivalries in a recent phone interview. It just takes the sport to a different level when people get emotionally involved and identify with the player or the rivalry. You just get more into it. It makes it more personal. Navratilova, together with Chris Evert, formed the greatest rivalry in the history of women's tennis. It encompassed a record 80 matches and 14 major finals, defining tennis through large swaths of the 1970s and 1980s. Rivalries are everything, said 7-time Grand Slam champion Mats Wilander in an interview at Roland Garros this week. You don't have to meet 60 times like Novak, Djokovic, and Rafa Nadal, but rivalry is what our sport is about. The prospect of Swiatek versus Sabalenka developing into the epical rivalry that it has been threatening to become over the past few years is tantalizing, with the makings of a long-running battle for supremacy. Swiatek, the cerebral and at times whimsical juggernaut capable of 30-plus win streaks and over 120 weeks at world number 1, against Sabalenka, the lighthearted but ferociously powerful hardcourt champion who has for now assumed top spot in the world rankings. Swiatek has 5 Grand Slams, including 4 French Opens, while Sabalenka has 3 major titles to her name. Of active players, only Naomi Osaka, with 4, has won this kind of number, and she struggled to get anywhere near that level since returning to the sport last year after giving birth to her first child. The WTA launched a full rebrand earlier this year, in a bid to add to the profile of its players. But for all the money, sponsorships, and eyeballs marketing can bring, the biggest boon it could get would be the blossoming of a proper rivalry at the top of the sport. While the Big Four and then Big Three era provided an accessible, lucrative gateway into men's tennis for more than 15 years, women's tennis has been missing a proper rivalry for decades. I first played pro tennis in 1991 when I was 15, and it was all about the rivalries, former world number 1 and 3-time major winner Lindsay Davenport said during an interview at Roland Garros. We just lost Chrissy Evert about 2 years earlier, and so there was this rivalry developing between Monica Seles and Steffi Graf. And that was amazing until it wasn't. Graf won 6 matches in a 4-year, 10-match rivalry that ebbed and flowed until 1993, when an obsessed fan of Graf stabbed Seles in the back at an event in Hamburg, Germany. Seles missed 2 years of tennis, and when she returned, Graf won 4 of the 5 matches they played. Women's tennis had been used to that, with Chris and Martina for all those years, and then it became Monica and Steffi, said Davenport, who's covering his year's French Open for TNT Sports. Then there was nobody who could really challenge Steffi when Monica was out. They tried to with Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, and then the rest of the decade never really took off. It felt like there were too many different players winning. Then all of a sudden the Williams sisters came, but that was a tricky rivalry because no one had ever really seen sisters have to battle it out. And then there were Justine Henin and Kim Clijsters for a little bit, but it doesn't feel like we've had that real huge rivalry like the men have had with the big three. So establishing that again would be important for the sport.